Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF World Champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 375 of the BoxHard Podcast, also known as the 2022 Christmas Special. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, man? And Merry Christmas.
I'm doing well, my man, and Merry Christmas to you. How you been feeling this week?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. It's the same every week. It's even better during the festive period. Like I say, it is the Christmas special. Every year we try to do something a little bit different, maybe a little bit quirky, I might even go as far to say. But yeah, we do things slightly differently on the Christmas special. There's usually not really many fights to review or preview. There are some to review this week, and we'll get to that in a moment. But the special guest on this week's show is a very special guest. It's former world champion Clinton Woods. We did about an hour, maybe just over an hour, an in-depth interview about his entire career, so that's really good. We did that earlier, or I should say I did that earlier this week. So that'll be what closes the show out, but before we get into that, of course, we're going to start with the review part of the show, part one, and then right after part one, or right after the review part, Eddie has some news, which... yeah, that's his gift to you, his Christmas gift to you. We'll get into just after the review part. And then that'll be that for part one. And then in part two, like I say, I think there may be one or two pieces of news at the moment. And then we'll go straight in with the Clinton Woods interview. That is the Christmas special guest 2022. Merry Christmas to you all once again. And let's dive straight into that review part of the show. We're going to start here with a card that took place last Friday, December 16th at the Centre Gervais Auto in Quebec, Canada. Over here, it was a big upset, Eddie. It really was. We saw Mary Spencer. She was 7-0, undefeated. It was for the vacant IBO World Super Welterweight title. This lady here had been calling out Clarissa Shields in the pros. You know, she felt that she could be the lady to beat Clarissa. I hadn't seen her fight before, I've got to be totally honest, but apparently they fought in the amateurs, and obviously Clarissa won, and, you know, Mary Spencer was saying, hey, I think I've got the style to beat her in the pros. She got in there with Femke Hermans, who was 13-4. It's a respectable record, really, but she's always kind of been an opponent. I don't think she's got many kind of standout wins. I know her for losing fights, to be honest with you, so I was under the impression that she actually had a losing record, but no, she was 13-4. But like I say, her big fight she's lost. She's been in there with Savannah Marshall, got stopped by her in her only stoppage defeat, and she also lost on points to Clarissa Shields. Those are her two biggest fights. Anyway, she gets in with Mary Spencer. Now, in terms of betting, you had to bet £25 or $25 to just win $1/pound back on top. So that's how sure the bookies were that she was going to win. So I put together an accumulator / parlay, as you guys call it in the States, and it was, I did 3 different ones, okay? One of them, like, it had loads and loads of different picks, obviously, boxing picks. One of them I felt was quite safe. One was a little bit adventurous, and the other one was quite adventurous, to be honest. Now, in all 3 of those accumulators / parlays, I had Mary Spencer to win. One was just to win. It was simply just to win, which, of course, as I say, was 1-25. The other one was Mary Spencer to win by knockout, because she was coming off 2 first-round knockouts, and the bookies expected her to win by knockout. And then the other one was for Mary Spencer to win on points. So one of those knockout or points were going to die immediately, depending on which outcome she had. Anyway, obviously it goes a distance. She doesn't get her out in the first round, so the bookies were wrong with that. But it goes a distance, and Mary Spencer loses loses for the first time in her career against Femke Hermans. Pretty much loses every single round, to be honest with you, which was just a complete shock. So that loss there screwed up everything. And yes, the 30-1 parlay would have came in if Mary Spencer would have got the decision. If she'd have got the knockout, I think it would have been about 21-1. And if she would have just won on points, just won by any method, it would have been 9-1 or something. So everything else came in, and she screwed it up. But a good win for Femke Hermans, now 14-4. Mary Spencer 7-1. I think Mary Spencer's quite up there in age as well, so it's a real tough one to take for her, because if you're losing to Femke Hermans, it's a tough position to be in. Elsewhere on the card, the main event, we knew it was going to end early. I said it. I thought it was going to end within 5 rounds. Deep down, I thought it was going to end within 1 or 2. And yeah, Arslanbek Makhmudov now 16-0 with 15 KOs. Michael Wallish, I think he was down about 3 or 4 times in that first round. Too slow, even though he'd gone over 1 or 2 rounds with Joe Joyce and others like that. Makhmudov's quite explosive, and he came to try and get him out immediately. And Wallish, now 23-6, retired on his store at the end of round 1. It was for the NABA and NABF heavyweight titles. Easy win for Makhmudov. It was always going to be that way. Moving out now to France at the Parc des Expositions in Nantes. Over here, we saw Christian Mbili move to 23-0, a unanimous decision over 10 rounds against very, very tough Vaughan Alexander. Still only been stopped the one time, which was to Zach Parker. He's now 17-7 with a draw. That one was one of the biggest calls of the weekend on points for Christian Mbili. You could triple, I think maybe even almost quadruple your money on Christian Mbili to win on points. I picked it. I didn't see anyone else pick it. I saw people saying he's going to stop Vaughan Alexander within 2 rounds or 3 rounds. I said, I think it's going to go to points. And yes, it did. It was a really, really good shout from myself. I'm just giving myself a little pat on the back there. But yeah, Christian Mbili, good fighter, obviously, explosive as well. I think he hurt his leg or something towards the back end of the fight. But Vaughan Alexander, he's teak tough. He got stopped by Zach Parker. No shame in that. Zach Parker is a quality fighter. But yeah, it's a good win for Mbili. He banks the rounds there. But yeah, Vaughan Alexander just is so tough and so hard to stop. He's just one of those guys. And also on the card, Solomon Sissoko. I didn't get to see this fight, but he's now 16-0. A majority decision against Talani and Benge, now 19-2. That one was for the vacant WBC silver welterweight title. I expected Sissoko to win that fight. The bookies had it close, and I think the fight was close, but I think he may have just nicked it from what people were saying. Moving out now to Germany, Eddie, and we're going here to the Firat Arslan Sports Center. The promoter of the show was Firat Arslan, and Eddie, who boxed in that main event, baby?
He did.
Firat Arslan now 53-9 with 3 draws. A TKO in round 2 against Jackson Dos Santos, now 22-15. I don't really care what kind of opposition level Arslan's getting in with, but we do know that he'll be getting a free bus pass very soon, and the fact that he's still banging out people that could be, it's getting to that point now where he's beating people who not only could be his son, but could be his grandson. That's how bad it's getting, but I love it, and we love a freak show in boxing. We always have done. Moving out now to the Bournemouth International Centre in Dorset, United Kingdom. Let's start with this one. This was a mad card, really. Michael McKinson, friend of the show, bounced back well after losing to Virgil Ortiz last time out. A points win over 6 rounds there. He's now 23-1. That win was against Roberto Ariaza, who's now 19-5. Caroline Dubois, I half thought that perhaps she would go the distance here. It was only a 6-rounder, 6 2-minute rounds, obviously, with the women. And she got in there with Sofia Rodriguez, who hadn't really boxed anyone of elite level, but I think she was 5-7. She'd never been stopped. Anyway, Caroline Dubois continues to get these knockouts, and it really brings excitement to the female side of the sport, because she seems to be a real exciting prospect. Now 5-0, a knockout in the very first round there against Sofia Rodriguez, who, like I say, I don't believe had ever been stopped. So that's a statement there really for Caroline Dubois. I think she's going to have a massive 2023. I mean, they could honestly rush her into a world title shot. I think that she is more than capable to do big things in the sport, but obviously you don't really want to rush her. I don't think if the promoters are not entirely sure of it, because I think she can be built into something quite special. We saw this one; it was a weird one on the card. Corey Gibbs, now 17-1, he loses his O to Jimmy First, who had about 10 days notice. I think he was 41 years of age. He was 13-0 as a pro. It was only an 8-rounder. Now, Corey Gibbs had a mouthpiece, Eddie. You wouldn't have seen the fight, but his mouthpiece did not fit in his mouth. It was too small. I should say it didn't fit in his mouth. It didn't fit his mouth. It did, of course, fit in, but it was not the right fit. This gum shield came out, honestly, countless times. It came out quite a few times. The referee said, okay, I'm going to take a point if it comes out again. Then it came out again. He took a point in round 4. Then it came out again. He took a point in round 5. Then it came out again. He took a point in round 6. This guy had 3 points took off for losing his gum shield, and it wasn't because he was in trouble or anything. It was just flying out of his mouth every time he opened his mouth to have a breather. It was crazy, and he's lost his O in that fashion. This was a young guy on the come up who I think had won some sort of little tournament, and things were looking good. I said last week I think he was from Wales. I think he's actually from Birmingham, so huge mistake on my part there. But to lose his O pretty much because his gum shield kept coming out because it didn't fit properly, wow, crazy. I think other than that, he would have probably won the fight, but Jimmy First did bring it to him, so credit to him. He put the pressure on and stuff like that, which you're supposed to do, and he didn't really tire either, to be honest, considering, the fight had gone 8 rounds and he didn't have much notice. Credit to him, but yeah, what a sickener really for Corey Gibbs. I bet on this fight in play. I bet on Jimmy First to get the win because all these points were coming off, and yet in play Corey Gibbs was still the favourite, and I was thinking it was getting to the point where it was mathematically impossible to give Gibbs the fight. Anyway, whatever, that was nice to win a few easy bucks. Chris Billam-Smith with arguably knockout of the year, a late contender for it for sure. He's now 17-1, a knockout for him in round 5 against Armand Zokaj, who's now 14-3. This guy was relatively unknown. A lot of people felt that Chris Billam-Smith was just going to walk through him when you look at his record, but apparently the training team of Chris Billam-Smith, obviously the likes of Shane McGuigan, they had quite understood the risks that this opponent would bring, and they thought it was not going to be a fight where they were going to just walk through this guy. And yeah, he really put it on Chris Billam-Smith, landed a few shots, hurt Chris Billam-Smith visibly, and Chris Billam-Smith was a massive favourite with the bookies, a huge favourite. And when we saw those first few rounds, it was a bit kind of head-scratching as to why he was that big of a favourite, because he didn't look great. Obviously, we had Richard Riakporhe ringside. He said he'd get, I think, Chris Billam-Smith out within about 3 rounds. Based on that showing, you'd have to say he could be onto something. But nonetheless, it was a fantastic knockout. It really was. I can't even remember the shot, what hurt him initially, but yeah, it was terrible. It was one of those shots where he landed this huge shot. I think it was an uppercut, and the guy just froze and then kind of in slow motion drooped down, fell backwards, boom with the head on the canvas. It was quite a scary one. The ambulance were in there real quick. Obviously they're brilliant in this country with stuff like that. Chris Billam-Smith telling the crowd to calm down. Obviously they were all celebrating like mad because it was a brilliant way to end what was quite a, I don't want to say 50-50 fight, but, a nip and tuck kind of fight. And the main event, I don't think it was the main event in terms of the billing order. But anyway, Dan Aziz now 18-0. A TKO in round 8 for him against Rocky Fielding, now 30-3. It's a great scalp for Dan Aziz. We didn't know what Rocky Fielding had left. As I said on last week's show, he'd only lost to Callum Smith and Canelo. No shame in those at all. He had never lost at this kind of level. He'd proven he was pretty much above this kind of level if we're talking about British titles, which I should mention. Obviously, the British was on the line, so was the Commonwealth. But yeah, Fielding, he'd been quite inactive and he'd fought really poor opposition for about 4 years, so we never knew if he had much left. Dan Aziz was obviously well up for the fight. There was a few moments there where Rocky was on the ropes and they were exchanging and Rocky was landing some good shots, and, you were hoping that maybe they were going to get to the centre of the ring and exchange instead. But Rocky did, for me, spend a bit too long on those ropes, and I guess trying to draw Dan in and maybe try and get him to, walk onto a shot or get countered or whatever, but it just didn't work. And in the end, Rocky was down in round 7, and his corner threw the towel in round 8. He was also cut as well over his left eye. He didn't look great. I think a lot of people are saying he should probably hang the gloves up now. He hasn't took tons of punishment in his career either. That's the mad thing when you think about it. He was stopped in a round by Callum Smith. He was stopped on body shots by Canelo, and he hasn't took much damage, to be honest with you. Even this fight, he didn't really take much damage. But he failed to make the weight as well. That kind of made people question how motivated he was. Was it just one last payday on Sky? But anyway, the titles weren't on the line for him. Aziz defended his title, the British, and also won the Commonwealth. So great stuff for him. He ends the year on a high. And to be honest with you, we're going to do the awards, the end of year awards, on next week's show. But he is actually a name in the hat for British Fighter of the Year, I think. Stay tuned for next week's show for all of those things. Moving out now to the final card to mention. It took place at the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was live on Showtime on the undercard. Friend of the show, he was on last week. Kenny Sims Jr., now 19-2 with a draw, a TKO for him in round 5 against Rock Murphel, who's now 17-2. We saw Bakram Murtazaliev moved to 21-0, a points win for him over 8 rounds against Roberto Valenzuela Jr., who's now 24-4. Jose Uzcategui, now 32-5. He lost a unanimous decision over 12 rounds to the undefeated Vladimir Shishkin, now 14-0. And the main event, Michel Rivera, now 24-1. He lost his O. He's the midget Muhammad Ali. He lost his O to Frank Martin, who's now 17-0. Rivera down in round 7, but unanimous decision for Frank Martin. He was the narrow favourite. It was close with the bookies, but Martin was the narrow favourite, and he was able to etch it out. A bit too good for Rivera, really. A lot of people were kind of kicking Rivera while he was down on social media and stuff. Felt that was a little bit harsh. You got to give him credit. He stepped in with another undefeated fighter. They both put it on the line. No belt on the line or nothing as far as I was aware. And you got to give him credit for, showing his balls there and getting in with someone like that who people felt in the trade he would lose to, and he did. So credit to him. He came up short, but it is what it is. Anyway, that wraps up the review part of the show. So just before we end part 1, Eddie, you've got a gift to give the listeners. There's some news. We've been talking about it for years, but it's finally arrived just before Christmas. Tell us, what is the score?
Oh, man, I hope this is a gift, I guess, for people who've been supporting me for,
everyone
a long
that
time.
listens to this show supports you, Eddie. It goes without saying.
That's no doubt about it, and they're all appreciated. And hopefully this is a gift for both of us, and, give me an opportunity to get back out there and see what the world of boxing has for me again, and see if there's a possibility of a late resurgence. You know what I mean? To maybe not. This fight that I'm gonna have, which is gonna be on the 6th of January, is just a little taste to kind of see where I'm at. I mean, I've been training, I've been sparring, I've been doing those things, and I really don't feel that different, with the exception of, obviously got to get back in fight shape type thing. You know what I mean? But for the most part, I mean, I don't really feel any different than I did when I was doing this at a much younger age. Even, no different than, 6 years ago at 34 when I fought, or 35, I guess it was at the time. It was, I just turned 35. So I don't know. It's a trial run for me. I want to see how I feel under the lights again. It's been so long, and, sparring is, and is a lot different from fighting. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you feel good in sparring, typically you're going to do well in the fight once things start to get moving. But there is a need to get in the ring and, spend some time in the ring, as in a fight format with the lights on, with the crowd there, with the expectations, all of these things, in order for you to get the true feel and to honestly know exactly where you're going to go. For a person like me of 40 years old, going to be 41 soon, I want to make sure that, this is something that I still can do at a high level, because if I'm not going to go and try to fight at a high level, there's no point in doing it for me. Of course, these fights with this Triller and, these Jake Paul possibilities to make a nice payday and all of that sounds awesome, sounds fun. And if I get one of those, I'm not going to turn it down. But the idea for me is to still compete. And competition for me is what, I love competition. What I've been doing recently, obviously I've been doing it for the most of my life. I love to play basketball, pick up and different stuff like that and play in leagues. So that's been keeping that drive going. But to get in there and put it all on the line, putting life and limb on the line too, this is something that, it has to be a lucrative situation. It has to make sense that way, but it also has to make sense, in how I'm going to perform, because I don't want to get out there looking bad and, give a terrible, last appearance, I guess, in the ring. So, and if that's to happen, that's going to be it for me. But all things considered, I like I said, I still feel good and I'm ready to go, come the 6th. And hopefully this is just the start of it, and some great things are to come.
There we go. I don't know if anyone was expecting that, but Eddie ends his inactivity. Almost 7 years since we've seen Eddie in a pro ring. He's back, as he says there, July 6th. It's going down in Wyoming. So, just one fight to see where he's at, as he says. Go on.
I would love if it was July 6th.
Did I say July? Oh, sorry, January. There we go. God.
I'm sorry. I can't be nitpicking you on your show, Joe. My bad. But no, it's January 6th. You know what's funny?
Go on.
For some reason, I always want to say August. I've been wanting to say.
That's even worse. That doesn't even begin with a J.
I know. That's why I'm like, why do I want to keep saying August? But it's, we're just looking forward to the summer. That's all. That's what we're doing.
There we go. So I rephrase it. January the 6th in Wyoming. Yeah, return to the ring for Eddie after almost 7 years out. So yeah, man, it's going to be crazy. There's the gift there. And I'm sure the listeners, or most of them, weren't expecting that one to come. But anyway, that brings part 1 to a close. We'll see you in part 2. Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's podcast, the Christmas special 2022. Part 1 and part 2 pretty much were separated there by about 5 seconds of air. So I'm not entirely sure I thought that one through, but that was part 1 we just did. In part 2, we're going to start with the news part of the show. There's 2 things to mention, I believe. It's a huge shame, actually, for Archie Sharp, but I'm going to go ahead with this piece of news anyway. You're going to understand what I'm talking about. February 3rd, Emmanuel Navarrete steps in with Liam Wilson for the WBO super featherweight world title. Oscar Valdez, I think, either got ill or was injured or something, and yeah, he was forced out of the fight with Navarrete. In steps Liam Wilson, who was supposed to fight Archie Sharp on the Charlo 2 undercard. Archie Sharp obviously ranked number 1, and he's totally confused as to why he wasn't given the shot. He's been number 1, I think, for almost 2 years, or maybe 2 years. And Liam Wilson, who was supposed to be fighting Sharp in an eliminator, has somehow leapfrogged him and got a shot here on February 3rd. So, of course, he's pulled out the fight with Sharp to go after this world title, and Sharp's been frozen out and doesn't understand why. So, it's a crazy situation. Elsewhere on that undercard, by the way, we're going to see Jose Pedraza get in there with Arnold Barboza Jr. That'd be quite interesting. Richard Torres Jr. as well on the card. Also, we're going to see, I think, maybe 1 or 2 of the Fernando Vargas sons, and also Nico Ali Walsh. And that one is to go down on Friday, February the 1st. It's a Friday night there. and it takes place at the what arena is it again? The Desert Diamond Arena, which is in Glendale, Arizona. Tickets start at just $25, nice and cheap there. Tickets are on sale now as well, so yeah, that's cool. This other piece of news as well, we must mention, January the 21st at the AO Arena in Manchester. As far as I was aware, Michael Hunter was supposed to be fighting Joseph Parker, but that isn't happening. Joseph Parker's now getting in with Jack Massey, which is crazy. Jack Massey, a cruiserweight who has got one extremely controversial loss to Richard Riakporhe. That's his only loss. It was super controversial. I think he slipped and it was called a knockdown, and then that actually cost him the fight. Something mad like that, if my memory serves me right. It was really controversial. He's been mismanaged horrendously ever since then. He's had terrible fights, in car parks and stuff. Like, I just don't understand what's going on. No one's picked him up. He needs to be with a big promoter. He's a really good fighter. And here he is moving up to heavyweight in his first fight at the weight, and he's fighting Joseph Parker, a former titleist. This is dangerous matchmaking. And to me, it looks like a cash grab, and I don't so much blame the fighter. I actually blame his management team and his advisor for actually saying that this is a good move for him. This is dangerous, and I'm not a fan of it. But that's an undercard fight, by the way. The main event, obviously, is Liam Smith and Chris Eubank Jr. And also on the undercard as well, we're going to see Richard Riakporhe get in with former world champion Krzysztof Glowacki, who is 32-3. That's a good fight there for Richard Riakporhe. I really like that one. But yeah, madness, man. That Jack Massey fight against Joseph Parker is crazy. Obviously, Parker a friend of the show, but it's just crazy to me. Yeah. Anyways. Anyway, that is it for the news part of the show. Like I said, there's nothing at all to preview, so I'm just going to say this is your last chance, your last vocal warning from myself, or vocal piece of notice, to say that next week is our end of year special. On that show there, we're going to be going over the BoxHard Podcast official awards of 2022, so you can join in. Again, I've said this before, this is your last chance to be a part of that show, and we're going to read out every single entry. Myself and Eddie are going to dissect the entries, and here are the awards. I want to read them all out one by one. We're doing Fighter of the Year 2022. We're doing Young Fighter of the Year 2022. They have to be 25 or under. We're going with Knockout of 2022, Upset of 2022, British Fighter of 2022. I don't want anyone to send in a world level British fighter. I don't want anyone to send in Tyson Fury or anyone on that world level. It needs to be domestic kind of level, maybe slightly above that, maybe European level, but who you think is British Fighter of the Year. I mentioned earlier on Dan Aziz. I think he's in for a shout. We're going with Female Fighter of 2022, Prospect of 2022, Fight of the Year 2022. There's quite a few good fights that have happened this year. We might do Trainer of the Year. You can send that in. We can talk about that. And also, if you want to send in your pound for pound lists, but only do it if you're brave, because we're going to be quite harsh, and we're going to analyze what you've sent in. Pound for pound list, top 10 from 1 to 10, 1 being the best fighter, 10 being the 10th best fighter. Myself and Eddie, I'm sure, are looking forward to doing next week's show where we go over all those things there. So like I say, send them in to us on Twitter at BoxHard Podcast or at ChampFastEddie, where we've both tweeted things out and had a bunch of people reply. So I've screenshotted everything. We're going to be reading out all those tweets on next week's show, which will be, like I say, the end of year special. But anyway, that's about it really in terms of me rambling on for the Christmas special. The final thing to do, of course, is to bring in this week's Christmas special guest, or this year's Christmas special guest, which will be Clinton Woods. Before we bring him in, Eddie, if you just want to, I'm just going to just let you close with a message to the listeners, which I never do. So you can just sign out. And yeah, man, it's been a blast. It's been, I think a full year now since you've pretty much done every week with me. And here's the Christmas special of 2022 coming to a close.
Honestly, Joe, wanted to thank all the listeners for supporting the show, obviously supporting us, supporting boxing. That's a big thing. I mean, the sport has grown a lot recently with a lot of the side shows and all that. And it's nice to see that there's fans that are actually fans of the core boxing, like the guys that work their entire lives to get on TV or even off TV just to entertain people, putting their lives on the line is awesome to see that. We appreciate you. Obviously, the show we want to grow and get bigger and better. And honestly, I'm enjoying being a part of it. You know what I mean? It's one day out of the week. Sometimes you look forward to it. You want to talk about what's happened during the week of boxing. If you watch it, like sometimes with me, I'm not constantly always able to see everything because I'm doing so many things and now training as well. So it's nice. And then what I'm actually really started to really, really enjoy about it is that I get so much information about some of the fighters that I haven't seen that I can actually now go and look for. You know what I mean? So these podcasts like this exist, and it helps so much with your knowledge of boxing. Not just, obviously not the left hooks and right hands, but more so in ways like of the knowledge of the fighters. You know what I mean? Like, I've been involved in boxing since I was 14 in competition, and 9 since I learned. And I think that I've heard so many names from fighters across the world, even, before, but now it's grown exponentially just from being in dealings with, obviously, you, Joe, and in the podcast. Just been hearing all these names of these people from different parts of the country that I never even heard of. Some people, some fighters who I probably would never hear of because they aren't, of that level, but they've done, some things with you, Joe, and they've been a friend of the show. So we've actually had a chance to talk to them, and I like that. I really like what this show has created, and obviously, if not for the supporters of the show, then it wouldn't exist. So, and now that I'm back into the fighting thing, and I'm obviously very appreciative to the people that support me, along with people who support the show, and all in all, like I said, it's also been a great year of boxing. Continue to support everything within boxing and the show, and we can do great things, and I'm looking forward to 2023.
There we go, a longer message from Eddie than I expected there, but that is as good as it's gonna get. I did want Eddie to sing Merry Christmas this week to everyone, but of course he turned me down.
I think I might do that. No, I'm not gonna do that, Joe. I'm not gonna ruin everybody's Christmas.
Exactly. And I mean, one little fact about Eddie that people don't know is Eddie, he loves to secretly try to speak Spanish at every opportunity he gets. So I think he was leaning more towards singing Feliz Navidad instead of
Feliz Navidad.
There we go.
Yeah. Hey, listen, man, I'm working on it, man. I'm getting better. But not the singing, but just better with the Spanish. And not the singing at all.
There we go. We got half a chorus out of him there. That's as good as it's going to be. Thankfully, he didn't ruin Christmas and carry on with that chorus, of course. But that is it. Merry Christmas to you all. Enjoy this interview with former IBF Light-Heavyweight World Champion Clinton Woods. And I'll talk to you guys after the interview. Enjoy it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former IBF Light-Heavyweight Champion of the world. It is, of course, Mr. Clinton Woods. Clinton, welcome to the show, my man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Clint. So, first things first, I'd like to start this interview the same way I start all interviews I do like this. Where did your journey begin, Clinton? What's your earliest memory of ever putting on a pair of gloves for the first time?
First time I put gloves on was Christmas morning, and it's quite funny because there's 7 of us, 7 kids, 5 boys, 2 girls, and all boys got football kits. And I was 7-year-old, and I woke up and I didn't have no football boots or football kit. I had a pair of boxing gloves and shorts, which were a bit strange, really, because I don't know why I was singled out to be a boxer. Like I said, I was only 7-year-old, but that's my first memory of putting a pair of gloves on.
I like to ask that question. obviously you eventually, started competing. Obviously, you were competing as an amateur. Am I right in saying you had just under 70 fights as an amateur, Clinton?
Yeah, I think I started 7-year-old at a gym, and my first fight was 11-year-old, and I think I had 67 fights as an amateur. I packed amateur in when I think I might have had one fight at 16. I never boxed senior. It was always junior.
Okay.
So I had like 67 in 4 or 5 years. So I wouldn't like junior the Yorkshires every year, regionals, and I lost to the eventual champions on 3 or 4 occasions. But it was tough times then. There were no buys. You see a lot of amateurs now where they get buys, more or less 2 or 3 buys. There were no buys. I was like fighting twice a day sometimes in amateurs. It was quite tough to win a Yorkshire. Not saying it isn't now, but back in the day, they were, like I say, it were a tough go to get to win a Yorkshire.
And Clinton, did you have like a highlight moment of the amateurs? Can you single down maybe your favourite memory of being an amateur?
Yeah, my favourite memory of being amateur. It was I don't know if it was Yorkshire Select or Sheffield Select. I think it was Yorkshire Select. We went to box Wales. I boxed in a place called Ronda, and I can always remember it. I think I was one of the oldest ones. We were all juniors. I think I was like one of the oldest ones. And when you do line up to go in before the fights, you like exchange a flag. We exchange a flag, and when Kid and I exchanged flag to look like Ivan Drago. And Nazim were on our team, and everybody's saying to me, "Oh my God, you're going to get hammered. You're going to get hammered." And Naz were like going, "No, you're going to hammer him. You're going to hammer him. I swear, you're going to bet." Anyway, I knocked him out in the second round, which is unusual to knock someone out as an amateur. I stopped loads as an amateur, but I actually knocked him out in the second round. And that's one of my highlights of the amateur career.
That's a good one, man. Excellent. And obviously, moving on to your pro career, Clinton, you made your pro debut in Sheffield on a Thursday, November 17th, 1994. You boxed Dave Proctor. You won on points over 6 rounds. Dave Proctor, by the way, never fought again. But what do you remember about your debut, Clinton?
Well, my debut, I was 22. I'd only been training about 5 or 6 months. I had put a glove on from 16-year-old to 22. So it was quite a long break. I was getting into that much trouble. I was working, but I was getting into that much trouble. I thought I decided to go into a gym and keep fit. That's the only reason why I went into a gym, not to turn professional. And my manager, after a few months, just said to me, "Why don't you box professional?" So I said, "Yeah." So that's how it happened. It was quite an unusual way of me turning professional. Like I said, I only went into boxing just to keep fit and get me out of a bit of trouble. Plus, I was playing pool one day, and one of my mates got hold of my tits, and he went, "God, they're coming on now." So, so that's one of the reasons. That's the only reason why I went back to a gym. And I had my first fight within 3 or 4 months of walking back into a gym. I boxed Proctor, he was quite a tough kid actually. I think he'd had about 5 fights. Did he? 5 fights, maybe 1 or 2 and lost 2. But the funny thing about the fight is, I never knew I was going to box pro. I mean, manager said to me, he goes, "Have you got some shorts?" And I was like, I went, "Yeah, I get some, I'll sort it, don't worry." And the day before the fight, I had no shorts. So I went to market down in Sheffield, and I bought some corduroy. And my girlfriend at the time's grandma just made these shorts up for me. And they were absolutely... oh my God, they were right. I felt so embarrassed trying them on. I put them on and I boxed in them, but they was horrendous. I never used them again. but that would have started my career. It was weird because I sold loads of tickets because I was a bit of a lad round our end. I like to go out on the drink. I had 5 brothers who did the same, so I had quite a big following. And everybody loved it. Everybody enjoyed it. So that was the start of the first fight.
Yeah, that's a brilliant backstory. I didn't expect all of that. That was excellent. Obviously, after your debut, you scored 3 knockout wins in a row, becoming 4-0. In your 5th pro fight, you go the distance again, this time against Kevin Burton. Now, you beat him on points over 6 rounds. You end up fighting him again just 4 weeks later. Obviously, in the second fight, he drops you in the second round.
No, he didn't.
Two questions in one. I was going to say, how come you fought the same guy twice in 4 weeks? And, you seem like you wasn't too pleased with the knockdown call.
Because the first fight, I boxed him, and I'd been to watch him before, and he was like a bit of a showman. Like he was a good kid. Kevin Burton was a nice kid. I mean, he was a tough lad. And I watched him. I thought, I'm going to box him. I'm going to hammer him. And anyway, on the night in Cleethorpes, I boxed him in Cleethorpes first. And when I boxed him, I beat him pretty easily on unanimous, but I wanted to stop him. And then after, they matched me up with him again. I don't know why they matched me up with him again, to tell you the truth, quite early in my career. But they matched me with him again at Frontier Club. And I boxed him again. And he always goes, his claim to fame with knocking me down. I went, you never knock me down. You know you never knock me down. It trod on my toe. And as I was throwing a shot, and I just fell on the floor. My chin was like iron. There's one good thing about my chin. And I always said to this day, I did not go down with you. I've actually got the fight on video. One day I'm going to get him and put on DVD, and I've got to show everybody that he didn't put me down, but it's still his claim to fame, he says. So he put me down, but he didn't.
And if we jump forward now to December 5th, 1997, 25 years ago this month, at the Wembley Arena, on the undercard of Pazienza Graham. You were 18-0 at the time. I know you'd already picked up the Central Area title, but to pick up the Commonwealth title here, which is obviously a major title, tell me what it was like to get your hands on that belt, and also the fight itself, obviously a win on points over Mark Baker, probably the toughest fight of your career at that point.
Yeah, I think I boxed about 8 days before in Sheffield, and after the decision, they just said, do you want to fight in a couple of weeks for Commonwealth? And I was like, I just said yes to everything. I never thought about it. I just went, yeah, done. Got to fight for Commonwealth down there on a big stage. Were like a big thing for me, but I had no nerves in boxing at that time in my career because I was always waiting to lose. And when I lost, I was going to pack in. It were all just a bit of fun for me. But I've told people this before. Boxing at that time was just a little bit of fun. I wasn't earning no money. The money what I was earning were peanuts. I was getting more when I was plastering. But I was just enjoying it. The fans were enjoying it. But we were waiting for the loss. And we thought maybe the Baker might be in it. So I got in the ring with him, and it was a good fight actually, because he come forward a bit of brawler. But at that time I was a boxer, and I used to move around boxing. And I did know I'd won. People thought it was really close, and people thought he'd won, but I knew I'd won. They did perforate me ear in that fight in one of the rounds. It was a good fight, great experience, and it was just like, I might lose the next fight. That's how I fought. That's how I always fought a long way through my career. That when I lose, I've had my fun, and I'll play a finish.
And obviously, yeah, you did lose the next fight. 3 months later, you're back out defending that Commonwealth title, March 28th, 1998, in Hull at the Ice Arena. Obviously, you were beaten on points over 12 by former British champion and future two-time world title challenger David Starry. Tell me about that fight and what you remember of it, Clinton.
You know the funny thing about that fight? I'd been over to spar with Starry. I sparred with him a few times, and they were doing like tit for tat. They were like doing no one better than other. But I saw how he was trained. He was trained by a guy called Gordon. He was doing his nutrition for him. He was doing this for him. I had nobody doing my nutrition. Nobody. I had nobody doing weights for me. I was a one-man band, really, me and my trainers. My trainers had never had no champions. I was more or less like their first pro fighter. So we were very inexperienced. And after the Baker fight, I started taking some stuff called creatine, what a boxer advised me to take. So I started taking creatine. And I was just blowing up. I didn't realise that it blew you up. So I really struggled to make the weight against Story. And I always remember on the night of the weigh-in, I weighed in. I made the weight, but I ran downstairs and I'm at this one of these crisps, these when you put money in and you get like crisp and drinks and biscuits. And I'm just chucking biscuits and crisps at me. And Story walked down his stairs and he must have seen me and he must have thought, God, that's so amateur. On the night, I lost on points, but there was nothing in me. There was nothing in me in the fight. And the fight, really, it was close-ish. But I lost. And on his drive home from Hull, I sat him back at car thinking, that's it, finished. But I weren't bothered. I weren't like gutted I'd lost. I just thought, that's it. We've had a good time. We've had a laugh. That's how I treat my life. That's how I treat my career at the time.
Yeah, because I was going to say, obviously, I speak to a load of former world champions and stuff, and you know, a lot of them have got kind of a loss early on, just like you do there, and they identify that moment as make or break, and it made them most of the time. What do you identify that moment? Was it a make or break moment?
Well, I knew I had to change from it. I weren't going to finish. I weren't going to finish boxing. And I just got back in gym. I just started training. And then Dennis just told me, he says, look, I can get you a fight at light heavyweight. It's like an eliminator against an unbeaten kid called Mark Smallwood, who were a good amateur. And I think he was something like 13-0, 14-0. I think he was a Maloney boxer. So I just said again, I said, yeah, I'll fight. So I just trained for that fight. Again, no nutritionist, no. I was still doing my own stuff, but making it a light heavyweight, which was 12-7, which I could make easy. I took the fight, and it was probably one of the easiest fights of my career. I bashed him up. I think I stopped him in about 6 rounds. It was an easy fight for me. And then it set me up for the Crawford-Ashley fight, which was like a massive thing.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Obviously, as you say, after the Starry fight, you fought Peter Mason after that. Then you fought Mark Smallwood.
Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, obviously you made the move to light heavyweight. You come back with those 2 stoppage victories to end 1998 on a high. And then, yeah, as you say, your next fight would be March 1999 in Manchester against, in my opinion, probably one of the best British fighters of all time to never win a world title, Crawford-Ashley. Certainly up there for me. But yeah, you box him for his British, Commonwealth and EBU European light heavyweight titles. You're able to stop him in round 8. Another brilliant knockout win. Tell me about that one, Clinton. Obviously massive.
Well, we went to watch him fight. I can't really say the word. He fought Tony Booth. But Tony Booth had really trained for the fight. And he took Crawford-Ashley about 8 rounds, I think. And we watched the fight and we fought to ourselves. I said to my trainer, and my manager Dennis at the time, I went, if I get fit, I'll beat him. And we all knew if I were going to get super fit, because Tony Booth was doing really well against Crawford, but Tony Booth ran out of gas, and then Crawford stopped him. Yeah. So we just knew that the fight was going to be hard early on, and the fight was hard early on. In the changing rooms, I was buzzing. I felt as though I was in a no-lose situation. I had no nerves before the fight. It was weird. Going to the ring, and the first round, he hit me with a right hand and he bust my nose, which I've had a lot of trouble with after the fight. I had to have 2 operations on my nose. He bust my nose in the first round, and blood were everywhere, but it just fired me up, and I fought right, and I just kept at him. But he could punch. Oh my God! I think in all my career, I would put him in the top 3 big punchers. He could whack. And I'm not a boxer who's going to bullshit. I do believe I got Crawford-Ashley at the right time. I do believe he underestimated me. I still got to beat him. And I spoke to Crawford about it. I said, I do believe I got. He went, no. He went, no. He went, he got me at a good time. For you. He says, for me, because I've trained hard for that fight. He did. And I beat him. I beat him on points. I stopped him in about 9 rounds. Massive win for me. Never thought I'd win British, Commonwealth and European. Probably the biggest night of my career, on par with winning a world title.
Yeah, it was massive, like I say. Was a great fighter in his day. Over the next 2.5 years, you fought a total of 8 times. You won all 8, 6 by stoppage. In that time, you also made a couple of Commonwealth and European title defences. This was when you got the call to fight Yor Davis in a WBC eliminator. The fight takes place in your backyard, the Ponds Forge, Sheffield. You beat him unanimously over 12. Tell me about that one as well.
Yeah, he was a tough fighter, really tough. He was actually the European champion at the time. I'd vacated the European. I didn't know I'd vacated the European, but I had vacated. My manager must have vacated. I don't know why, but the title was vacated. So Yowie Davis had just beat Simpson, knocked him out pretty easily in about 3 rounds, and I was matched up with him. The sparring what I got, it was a southpaw. Never really sparred with many southpaws. I knew it was going to be a tough fight, and it were a tough fight. I actually watched the fight over day, and it were a tough fight. God, he were like lead. And we hit each other, and my face was a bit of a mess after. But I deserved the win. I do believe if my training would have, if I'd have had like a new, I don't keep talking about nutritionists and that lot, but I still weren't having nothing like that. I was still playing at my diet really, and at my weights and everything. I was still playing at everything. I was still playing at boxing, to say the truth. I believe I'd have stopped him, but it was a good win for me, and it set me up for a world title fight with Roy Jones, which was like, I never thought it'd happen. I never thought that'd happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Even the day Brad Jacobs come over from America, who was acting for Roy Jones, and we were told to go and meet him. And I'm sat there at this meeting, my manager's there, and Brad Jacobs was sat there, and they're talking about me fighting Roy Jones in America. And I'm sat there thinking, Lord of shit. Honest to God, I didn't think the fight was going to happen. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen for a long time. And then I can always remember he was making a defence against an Australian, Glen Kelly. And Dennis went, right, we're going up plane. We're going up plane to Miami. Went to Miami, and Roy Jones knocked out Glen Kelly with like a shot where he's on ropes and hits him like from behind.
Yeah.
He's like, and Kelly went down, and that was it. And I'm like watching it thinking, I'm not going to fight him. And I just didn't think it was going to happen. And then we had a press conference. Dennis just went, get up, get up. And I'm not like that kind of fighter. Anyway, get up. So anyway, I just stood up. I went, Roy, when are you going to fight me? And he went, come up here. maybe go and stand on this podium where all these hundreds of people are taking photos. And I've stood there like, and I went, you should fight me. I'm your number one challenger. I have been for 2 years. And he went, right, this is my next opponent. And they were made just there and then. I'm like, Jesus. I went home and spending money with my missus. What should no, I had a good missus. She went like that. So then I went home, and the fight were on. It was like unbelievable.
That's crazy. I mean, yeah, like we say, after the Davis fight, you pick up a quick knockout against Glen Johnson. Then, yeah, you travel to the States, September 7th, 2002 in Oregon. You challenge Roy for the WBC, WBA, IBF Light-Heavyweight world titles, I think a couple other minor ones. At that point, Roy Jones was obviously still in his prime. In his prime, he was the closest thing to unbeatable you can almost imagine. Ultimately, your corner threw the towel in round 6. We had Roy on the show in the past, and he admitted, in his words, you'd made him bring his A game that night. Tell me what you remember about the fight.
Oh God, the fight. The training were the best we could do for my. You gotta remember, my team were very inexperienced. We hadn't boxed for nothing not like on this stage. It weren't like a Brendan Ingalls camp where we'd been used to this. We'd been nothing like this. The sparring partners what I'd got were just mediocre sparring partners. And I entered the fight confident that I'd give him a good fight. And I'll be truthful, I never thought I'd beat him. But I thought I was going to push him. I just thought the chin would get me through it, and I'd push him to I just didn't think I could beat Roy Jones, and that would probably be a bit too negative. I had known in the changing rooms, it was like a Morgan changing rooms before, and I was like, come on, you know. Anyway, everybody were like confident, and we got in the ring, and for 3 rounds I had a right little go at him. I caught him actually. I think I was about the first person to mark his face up. He had a few bruises and bumps on his face. I walked back to corner with my hands up in one of the rounds, and I thought, God, this how easy it's going to be. And then anyway, he hit me with a punch off. It was 3rd or 4th round, hit ribs, and he bust my rib. And that was the turning point then. He just kept on going down to ribs and then teeing off. And they stopped the fight. rightly so, to stop the fight. I think I'd been bashed up, and it set me up for the years to come. I changed a lot of things after that fight. So yeah, it was a great experience. I think it was the best experience I had. I had to change my game. I had to change things, and that's what we did.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw the fight pretty much how you did. I thought you gave it a really good go for the first 3 rounds. Really good. I mean, we see Brits go over. It's been happening for years and years. We see a Brit go over to America for a big opportunity. Michael Buffer's announcing their name. George Foreman's on the commentary. First bell goes and they freeze. And that was not the case here. You brought it to Roy. You put him on the back foot. He was on the ropes many times. You didn't show him any respect. And, it was anybody's fight through that first 3 rounds. I know that they all thought, he won every round or whatever. But honestly, you brought it to him, man.
Yeah, the thought I'd give it a go. A few days before the fight, when my manager, because my manager didn't come out, Dennis didn't come out till after I'd been there a couple of weeks. And my worst enemy was myself. I used to overtrain. And when my trainer were telling me in America to strike, that's it, resting, I was going for runs. When my trainer come, when my manager come over, I got cold sores and I'd overtrained. And he went mad. We had a bit of arguments. Me and my trainer had a bit of an argument. But that was just me. I never thought I was fit enough, so I was running all the time. And I did wear myself down. So I did enter the fight. Not saying I'd have beat him at my best anyway, slightly under par really, and I just gave it my best for 3 or 4 rounds, and obviously then when he caught me with ribs, that was it. I couldn't really do much then. He just kept targeting my body, and he took away my fight, to tell you the truth. But I enjoyed it. No, I know I lost, but I enjoyed the experience. I got paid okay. And I come back home, and again, what do we do then? We didn't. I didn't know how to finish. Didn't know how to do this. We didn't know what to do. But like I said, I've got a good wife and everything, and we sat down and I said I might carry on, and she said, "Oh, it's up to you. It's up to do what you do." But it weren't a massive loss for me because I lost the best fighter in the world. I wish I could have had him 2 years later, but. Because it was quite the funny thing about it. I think a year or 2 years later, I'm ranked above him.
Yeah.
And I'm beating guys who are knocking him out.
Exactly. My last question on that Roy Jones fight. Obviously you walked out first as the challenger. Did you know he was going to wrap himself out? What was that like being in the ring while he was doing all that? It looked crazy.
They told me that it was going to be a long time walking out. It didn't really bother me, to tell you the truth. I enjoyed myself too much. I just watched the crowd and I just enjoyed it. I didn't really have any nerves. It was weird. It was though I was here to lose anyway. I know he's pointing out the right thoughts to have before a fight, but no, I was fighting a special fighter at that time, and I was just going to enjoy it, and I did.
Yeah, because I was going to say, when the camera goes to you just before, I think maybe they were, saying your name, Buffer, I think, was announcing your name. You was in the corner. I remember as he said your name, you put your hand up in the air. And I read into, facial expressions a lot with boxing. Obviously, it reminds me of, Frank Bruno, Mike Tyson, where you could see that, he just didn't look up for it, Frank. But with you, I just looked and thought, he does not look one bit nervous. So to hear you say what you're saying, that's exactly what I thought. I just thought, wow, it's like, he should be really nervous. This is the best fighter in the world. But...
It's funny. A lot of things like that don't really... After boxing, I wanted to do something what we're going to feel like boxing. So I did a few parachute jumps. And even flying, even when we were going up into air, I didn't feel nervous. It just felt like a boxing fight for me. It was weird. I never struggled with my nerves, so I'm all right with it.
And after the Roy Jones fight, obviously you bounced back, 3 stoppage wins on the bounce. Sergio Baez, Arturo Rivera, Demetrius Jenkins. Now we arrive to Friday, November 7th, 2003. You box at the Hillsborough Leisure Centre against the Road Warrior, Glen Johnson. On the line, of course, the vacant IBF World title. This was the first of the eventual trilogy of fights. This one ends in a split draw. Tell me about it, and did you feel you nicked it?
I thought I'd won. Just before the last round. I actually put him down with a shot. He went down with a shot, and the referee put it as a slip. But if you watch the fight, it is actually a shot I hit him with. So I think if they had scored that as a knockdown, I would have definitely won the fight. But it was close. It was a close fight, so I just thought we were going to do it again anyway. So we did it again, and obviously, you know what happened when we did it again. He beat me.
A doctor actually rang me up. It was a doctor who rang me up, and he asked me about the second fight. How did I feel of this, that? And I said to him, I says, all the way through training, I just didn't feel right. I was coming home, falling asleep. Before gym, I was falling asleep. So he did some tests on me. And we found out that I was slightly anemic. And they just thought it was through the years of training hard and not getting no proper nourishment down me. I just weared myself out. So I had a bit of time off. I started having some tablets. I got a nutritionist. I more or less changed everything. My diet changed. And for me, that was a changing of my career because I just felt a different animal. It was unbelievable. I've always said that I used to always go on about nutritionists, always loads of crap, loads of this, loads of that, but it did change me. I got a guy called John Clark who were brilliant, and I was just training harder. I felt better, running further, and everything. But that was definitely a big point.
And John Clark came in. Was that after the second fight?
After the second fight, yeah.
Okay.
After the second fight, I went. He's a friend who's got his own gym. He's actually Mr. Like strongman. He did strongman, but one's who's natural strongman.
Okay.
And he was like a world champion at that, so he knew his stuff. And we talked about it, and he just put me on a good diet, plenty of carbs, and it just changed. I took loads of more. Obviously, all your supplements. He did a weight program with me, and it did. I changed. My body changed. I trained harder, and obviously, if you look at my career, that's when I started getting all my wins again.
Yeah, and as you touched on a bit earlier, obviously after that second fight with Johnson, he goes and knocks out Roy Jones Jr. So that happened in the meantime. Your next fight was an eliminator for the IBF title again back in Sheffield, October 24th, 2004. You boxed Jason Delisle. You were down in the first round. You got straight back up. You put him down in round 7, and you got the TKO in the 12th and final round. Bit of a mad fight, that one, then.
Do you know also, you know that fight? He put me down in second round. Second round. I can't remember what.
The first round he had you down. First round.
When he put me down, I couldn't even remember all about it. And I come back to the corner. Corner went, hey, feel I went. And I just thought that I'd got old. I didn't feel right in them first 2 or 3 rounds. I thought, oh my God, I've just lost it now. Is that it? Have I gone too long? And then as round went on, I started getting stronger again, and I just knew I had to knock him down. So then I knocked him down, and I stopped him quite late on, I think.
You stopped him in the 12th.
Yes. Yeah, so I stopped him, and I was buzzing, but I were a bit like, I've lost it a bit. No, when we're going down, and because I very rarely go down. But then I'm happy with a win. He was a tough kid. I watched some of his fights. And it obviously got me eliminated for World again.
Yeah, Glen Johnson obviously decided to go against the IBF the IBF's orders. He went straight to fight Antonio Tarver, so he was stripped of the title. You got the shot at the vacant title. This was your 4th world title attempt. You boxed the undefeated Rico Hoy, 18-0. The fight takes place in Rotherham. I'm sure I don't need to remind you of the date, but what was the date? Go on.
I ain't got a clue.
That's terrible. Friday, March the 4th, 2005. A TKO victory for yourself, round 5 as well. Talk me through the fight and, of course, what it meant to you to finally put your name in those history books forever.
Well, when they told me I was fighting for the IBF, I was saying to win Johnson's champion. No, they actually said that these guys didn't want anything to do with this Rico Hoy. So they sent me some videos of this Rico Hoy. And I'm watching it. It's no lie now. I sat at home watching it. And he was just knocking them all out. He was knocking good fighters out. And I just looked at him and I thought, he was a good boxer. He had a good jab. He had this awesome power. And I just thought, how can I beat him? He's going to outbox me or he's going to outpunch me. So we decided to take the fight. I thought, we'll take the fight and see how we go on. But I trained so hard. It's probably the best shape I've ever been in. In the changing rooms, I was flying. Every shot on pads was just bang, 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 bang. Even them in changing rooms were like going, Jesus, I've never seen it like this before. And obviously going to the ring, and again, it ended up being quite an easy fight for me. But I hit him with a shot in second round. I think it was second round with a left hook, and it wobbled him. And I just knew then, I thought, I've got him here. He didn't like it when I stood. I did stand toe to toe with him quite a lot, and I couldn't miss him. I'd done a lot of inside fighting in my training. I just couldn't miss him with uppercuts and hooks inside. And I don't think he were. I don't think he was thinking that was going to happen. He thought I was going to move, and it was me who took it to him. It was a good fight. He could punch again, he could whack. But I was that hyped up. I was never going to lose that night. And I've always said, I don't care who it would have been that night in that ring. I'd have beat anybody that night at my weight. Everything had just gone right. When your training just goes perfect, and it was one of the only times that my training did go perfect. I don't want to make excuses for the loss, but everything just went perfect. And it was like one of the best days of life, really, winning World. I never thought when I went World. Do you want to know something? I never thought when I went Central Area. I won Central Area, and I won them all. So that was just like the cream. It was like unbelievable.
Yeah, and it should be noted that obviously the fight before he fought you, he just beat Montel Griffin as well. So yeah.
He beat a lot of good fighters. Yeah. And he didn't just beat me, knocked him out a lot of them. I know. I watched a few videos, and when I'm watching him, he's just like hitting them and he's like banging out. And I just thought, Jesus. But on the night, it was my night, and it was. I'll never forget that night. It was unbelievable. Great night.
Just try to remember the date, though. 6 months later, Clinton, you made your first defence of the title against former WBO World Light-Heavyweight champion Julio Cesar Gonzalez. Good fighter. His record at the time, 38-2. You served him up his third loss. Unanimous decision, 12 rounds at the Sheffield Arena back home. Walk me through that one. That was another good scalp.
Yeah, a good fight. That he was a tough man. Him. I'd watched a few of his fights before. He took Roy Jones 12 rounds. Proper hard man. Probably one of the most hardest men I boxed, to tell you the truth. When you watch him on video, when I watched him on video, he just didn't look hard to beat. When I watched him on video, I thought, I'm going to start boxing, I'm just going to move, just keep out of his way. But when you're up against him, it's a different story. He's just got this length for his arms. His arms were like double length for mine. It was like, so again, I boxed him for a bit, but I actually stuck it on him, and I found it when I stuck it on him, I got more success. But good fighter.
Yeah, he was a really.
And again,
good fighter.
he could punch. He was one of them guys who was just solid. It's funny because in boxing, everybody thinks that's the stocky guys who are the punchers. The guys who I've boxed, it's the tall ones who've always been the big punchers, the tall, slimmer ones.
Yeah. Andy Lee is another guy that don't look like he can punch hard. But
Yeah.
Your second defence of the title came 8 months after that, Clinton, at the Ponds Forge. You had the rematch with Jason Delisle. This time, obviously, he didn't put you down. This time, you were able to get him out of there in half the time, round 6.
Yeah.
Tell me about that
It
one.
was a time when I was flying in training. We're absolutely flipping on my runs. Nobody could run with me at the time. I was just up and down hills, and I was flying. Just my weights were going good. Never struggled with weights. Training were good. Sparring were good. The only thing that I was getting a little bit niggles with my elbows. But everything went perfect. And it was a night when Ricky Hatton was fighting as well. He was fighting in America. And my manager decided to go over and watch Ricky. He had involvement with Ricky Hatton at the time. And he went over there. So I went like it was a bit different that night. It was the first time he'd never been in the corner for a fight. So it did feel a bit weird walking out to the ring without my man at the side of me. But he decided to go over with Ricky. And I boxed and I found the fight so easy. I bashed him up. It took some hammer to hit him. It took some right hammer. And the finish, what I finished him with, I think it was a jab, and then I just stood back and right uppercut, and he just went down with it, and it was a good win. A good win against probably not one of the best opponents. It was tough in our game, but I'm not going to say it was like one of the best. It was a tough kid, Jason Delisle, top kid as well, really nice lad.
Yeah, and you did love a rematch. I mean, you were the king of rematches. After that was when you boxed Glen Johnson yet again. Obviously, the third, it was your third title defence. It was your third and final fight with Glen, the trilogy fight. The date, September 2nd, 2006, Bolton. It went 12 rounds again, so obviously you'd done 36 rounds with this man. But this time, you emerged victorious, split decision. Talk me through the fight and the feeling it must have given you to have the final say in this Woods-Johnson saga.
Yeah. Just a thing to say as well. No, my fights, I never had a choice of fighters. I don't know, like we say, I had these like 2 fights with Johnson and 3 fights with Johnson, 2 fights with so-and-so, and 2 fights. I never really had a pick in my fights. I never even had that. I know a lot of kids now get choice of who do you want to fight. The only choice I ever had in a boxing fight was either Glen Johnson or this other guy, and I picked Glen Johnson. And it's quite good. It's quite funny because Glen Johnson, nobody really wanted to fight him. So I fought him first fight. Obviously, first fight I drew. Second fight I lost. So it was the first fight with him, and he'd made quite a lot of money out of me bringing him out of flipping out of the wilderness, really, because nobody wanted to know him. It was me, it was us who brought him out, and he ended up beating Roy Jones and Tarver, and so anyway, it's me and him again for the first fight, and again I was absolutely on fire. In training, it would a bit weird really, because I always think there was a bit of I don't know what's the word, hickory hocus pocus going on. It was a Frank Warren show. Frank Warren had already arranged for Calzaghe to make a defence. Johnson to make a defence against Calzaghe. That were already more or less done. So we got to the arena. And I said, "Oh, can I just the weigh-in?" I said, "Oh, can I just try out scales?" So go on scales, and now I'm about 4 or 5 pounds over, which is like unheard of. So anyway, I'm like shitting myself. So anyway, I'm in sauna, and it's the first time I've done it for years again. So I'm in the sauna for ages. And I come out. So anyway, and then I go on the scales for the proper scales and I'm like 2 pound under. So I'm like, something's dodgy with scales. Something's been dodgy going on here. So anyway, we get on fight night. They show us to my changing room. Remember, I'm world champion. Show us to changing rooms. I don't give a shit where I go. But they put me in a changing room about the size of a flipping, closet. It was tiny. So it all kicked off, and my manager, Dennis, and my trainer are kicking off with other officials, and it's proper nearly fighting. It's like, and I'm like, I don't give a shit. That's it. Not bothered. So anyway, they moved us to another changing room. Anyway, the fight happened, and it was a tough fight. It was like non-stop, but I just stood with him most at front fight. I had a bad round. I think I had a bad 9 rounds where he looked like he was going to... I wouldn't say I were wobbled, but he caught me with some big right hands over the top. And then I come back 10th, 11th, 12th and claimed them. So I knew I'd won it. I knew it was close. And obviously when my arm was raised, I was like buzzing. The atmosphere in Bolton Arena were unbelievable. But in the changing rooms, I'm in changing rooms, and then this security guard comes up to me and he says, "Oh, quick!" So I went into this room, and there's a table, and there's cards on it, cards like Glen Johnson. So I sit there, and Frank Warren comes and sits in the middle. I went, am I supposed to be here, Frank? And he went, "Yeah, because we can sort something out." And then I was told 2 or 3 days later that me and Carl Zagger fight were on. My manager told me it were on, and I started training. And he fought Hopkins instead.
I lost you for just a second there, Clint. And what did you say, sorry?
I said, I was told by my manager that the fight with me and Carl Zagger was on. He told me how much. I can't remember how much it were now. He told me how much it were, and I agreed. Nothing was written down in paper, and then a few months later it was just all cancelled. It was at a time when I'm really struggling with my elbows. I'm having injections in them all the time. Cortisones, really badly advised. It needed operation, and the Gonzalez fight were coming up. Because he got back to me number 1 again, had to fight me number 1 again. And I was fighting Gonzalez in Las Vegas. But my elbows were so bad. And I think about 3 weeks before the fight was supposed to happen, I just broke down in gym, my elbows went. I went to hospital, got it scanned, and my tendon had ripped off. So that one knackered, put an operation on it. It put me back a bit. And then obviously the Gonzalez fight, we're back on again. So I repaired, but the injuries, it did hamper my training.
And the Gonzalez fight, the rematch with Gonzalez was supposed to take place in Vegas, you say, but obviously ended up taking place in Sheffield.
Yeah, it's supposed to be in Vegas. It's supposed to be in Vegas. All my friends had bought tickets. So the only good thing about it, I just wait, I'll go over here. So Rick Hatton was fighting Castillo. Yeah, Rick Hatton fighting Castillo.
Possibly.
Yeah, I think you were. Yeah, you were. It were Ricky Hatton's, a big fight for Ricky Hatton. And I was supposed to be on that show, but I still went with all lads. We had a good time. And then I come back, and then I started getting back. Well, I was still nursing my elbow from operation, and I got back into shape again.
So that was you went out with the lads to the Ricky Hatton fight in Vegas. That was after or before the Gonzalez rematch?
Before.
Before. Okay, let's revisit that just a sec. Obviously, it was your 4th title defense. Again, September 29th, 2007. The Gonzalez rematch, another unanimous decision over 12. Tough guy again.
Yeah, it was tough, but training has gone all right. But like I said, I started having trouble with my elbow, my other elbow at that time now. So I had an operation on one elbow, now my other elbow. But I trained well and I was fit. I felt as though the fight was going a lot easier than the first fight with him. Nearly stopped him in the 11th round. I think the referee was about to stop it, say it's off, and the bell went. And then in the 12th round, I went out to try and finish him off, and I actually got caught with a shot and got cut. But we finished off and we won it unanimously. I was happy, but I just knew that my career were like, I was in that much trouble with my elbows. I just knew it was. I was finding it hard to train as hard as I could.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And obviously after that was when you made the trip to the States yet again, this time to fight former 2-time light heavyweight world champion Antonio Tarver. The fight takes place literally in his backyard, Tampa, Florida, April 12th, 2008. Sadly, you lost your world title that evening, but a unanimous decision for Tarver. Tell me about that one. He was good when he was on it, Tarver.
Yeah, it was very good. On the night, it weren't that he was good. It was just that I was bad. the relationship in my camp had totally died, to tell you the truth. Me and my trainer had been a great partnership, me and Richard Poxon. We weren't even talking. Things had just broke down. It was terrible. Everything about it was horrible. I didn't want to go to America. Running up to the fight, I hurt my back really bad, and I wanted to pull out the fight. I was told I couldn't pull out the fight, which people deny happened, and it did happen. It weren't a happy place in training in America. It was awful. It was terrible. Everything about it was terrible. The sparring partners I was fighting a 6'3" southpaw. I'd got 2 sparring partners in America who were probably 5'10" orthodox, but they said they'd go southpaw if I wanted. It was shocking. My best friend from like being a young kid watched everything and told me to get home, to come home. I broke down in an interview with Sheffield Radio. I tell them not to play it. I just broke down. I tell them I want to get hammered. The training's gone terrible. It was shocking. From landing in America, it was shocking. It was an absolute disgrace. The shape I was in. It was the funny thing about it. Me and my manager have been like best mates all the way through my career. He had a little fallout one day in gym. He said he was going to fuck off back to England. I was sat in this gym one day. I sat there. I was underweight because I'd lost that much weight. It was just a shambles. And anybody who was there will watch me train and watch me finger will say that. People who were looking after me, manager, they'll say something different. But it was shocking. I always recently I got Sheffield. This lad the interview, and he says he's going to try and find it. I tell them not to play it. It was shocking. I just broke down, and I just says everything was bad. It was a horrible ending to my career, that bit. I walked out to the fight knowing I was going to lose. I just knew I was going to lose. I told my wife not to tell that to America. I said, "Don't come. I'm going to get fucking hammered." And I walked to the ring getting racially abused, which I didn't give a shit about. And after as well, and I boxed in the fight. I lost. I didn't have nothing in me. Nothing. How he didn't knock me out. To this day, I don't know how he didn't knock me out. Because he could whack. And all they kept doing in the corner, just shouting at me, "Okay, now there." If you watch the fight, I couldn't do anything because I hadn't done it in training. It was shocking. It was shocking. After the fight, if you see after the fight, I just want to get out. I got out, went to the changing room, and there's always a story in me about a lonely changing room when you lose, and it were a lonely changing room. Just me and my wife. We sat there. We went back to my room that night. I didn't want nobody come to see me. And I sat in that changing room, in that hotel room, and I thought, that's fucking it. I finished. And that was it. It was a horrible night. In fact, it was a horrible couple of months because the training was shocking. I'd have beat Tarver. I was favourite to beat him. But everything just gone wrong. Me and my trainer had never spoke since that day. Wow. It was bad times, but most boxers probably go through it.
Yeah, wow.
So the only reason why I decided to have a comeback, I never really said I'd retired. The only reason why I come back, not for the money, because there was no money in it anyway. The reason why I decided to come back and have the last 2 fights is because I didn't want to finish boxing the way I had against Tarver. Because he'd been such a good career. I thought, I can't finish boxing like that. So that's why I took the next 2 fights.
Yeah, and we'll touch on them briefly. Obviously, points win over 12 in that eliminator against Elvir Mariki in Jersey. And then, followed by another crack at a world title to finish things off.
Yeah.
Let's just touch on that real briefly. Obviously, your final career fight for the vacant IBF, your old belt. Yet again, you travelled to the States, this time to fight the undefeated Tavoris Cloud. Friday August 28th, 2009 in Hollywood, Florida. You lose the fight unanimously. Tell me what you recall of that. Still fighting at the highest level of the sport, I must say, till your last final fight.
Yeah. I was training with Glen Rhodes, one of my old trainers. Great bloke. I had, and the good thing about it is, the last couple, 2 or 3 months, we're happy in boxing. We trained, we had a very good laugh. Me and Glen were like good pals, but I knew in my heart I weren't training like I'd trained before. I just knew it. I don't know why. It weren't the money, because I think, God, for that last fight, I think it was from like 35 grand I got. Wow. To take away. So it weren't big money in it, so it weren't the money what I after. I just didn't want to go out the way I did against Tarver. So we trained hard. We trained, but I didn't train. I weren't doing my runs. I used to run from my house where I live in countryside where I live. It's got these hills and down. I weren't doing it no more. I was running, but I was just doing easy runs. I was content. I weren't doing the weights with my nutritionists. I really cut a lot of stuff out. I don't know why. I just wanted to finish. I don't know. It was weird, my last fight. People who saw me train thought, you look like you're training hard to me. I always trained on. I always kept fit. But I just knew in my heart that I weren't training like I were. Anyway, the fight happened. And you know, the first 2 rounds, I thought I was going to just walk all over him. I thought it was going to be easy. But as the fight went on, I just didn't have it. I didn't have the motivation. I didn't have the killer instinct, what you need in boxing, to like try and really. I just wanted to get through it, and that's what I did in the fight. To tell you the truth, he hit me with some big shots in one of the rounds, and I walked back to the corner, and I sat there, and I could see about 10 people in front of me. It was the first time I'd ever been like that. Yeah. And I thought, and my trainer's going, right, that's it, just move. But I little to know that the guy who were fighting were absolutely gone, bollocks. He could hardly. Because after the fight, I went to see him, and he says, the last 2 rounds, he were like dead. If he'd have put it on him, I'd have stopped him. But I just went on light finger mode, and we lost on points, but I was happy. I knew I was going to finish. Me and my wife were happy, and that was it. So I had a good ending to me, even though I lost. I lost but it was a good ending to my fight. But I lost with a world title fight. A lot of people said, "Well, you could carry on," but I wasn't going to carry on because I didn't train like I should have, and I didn't have it in me no more. I think I've been pro about 16 years. It was a long time.
Yeah, no, it was, and yeah, I guess, like you say, you knew it was over. Your heart wasn't really in it towards the end, but to bail out, in a top level fight, there's no shame in that at all. You finish your career with a record of 42-5 with just 1 draw. I've got a couple of real quick fire questions before we wrap it up.
Right. Yep.
Another man that's been on this podcast in the past, your former trainer, former heavyweight world champion Tim Witherspoon. What was it like to work with him? Because he seems like a real nice guy.
Nice guy. I went over to Philadelphia to train with him. I spoke to a lot of his friends, and the one guy who I believe was his only friend or the proper friend, and a guy called Leo, who was a white guy. We trained on the Black Ghetto. That's where we trained. Quite a good experience. That I loved it. I trained on the young. It was black guys. And you want to know something? I loved it. I absolutely loved it. The guys, we had a very good laugh with him. We used to go for coffee with him in these little bars and things like that. And his friend, he had a friend called Leo, this old bloke, and he used to always talk to him, and he used to tell me about stories about Tim. And he was just a lazy person, unfortunately, and he trained me as a lazy, not like I'd been trained before. Technically very good, but just didn't push me enough. And didn't push me enough because one of the fights we trained me for was a Johnson fight where I actually really pushed. And I weren't pushed enough by him, and unfortunately we split after about 3 fights. Yeah. But that was the only trouble with him. Great bloke, top bloke.
Yeah, really nice guy.
As a trainer, like I say, his mate said, he will never be a good trainer because he's too lazy, unfortunately. But top bloke, oh my God, that's a good laugh for him.
Yeah,
And do you want to know something? The experience of me going over to Philadelphia, I was there for like 2 months, a month, and then come home, then a month, and come home. What an experience! Oh my God, we think we're lucky in this country to have what we've got, because some places where they were living, oh my God, big eye opener.
Yeah, no, I've been there myself. It's horrible around that place.
Do you know one day we got to the gym, the gym called the Schuler's Gym.
Yeah, I know the gym. I know the gym. Yeah, I know that gym.
Got to the gym one day and there were three dead bodies outside.
Jesus Christ!
Oh, I was like, they'd been shot there and then. Well, 5 minutes before I got there, coppers obviously moved us away. I was like, it just new world to me. I'm like, oh my God, it was like shocking.
Yeah.
It was like,
it's down like a dingy little side road, I think.
Yeah,
yeah.
Underneath is the garage.
Yeah. I've been there.
The guy who owns the garage, the guy who owns the garage, he owns the gym and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know something. When I first walked in, I would call all sorts. Kill the white this, white that, white this. Kill him, white, or white, fucking kill him, and this, that. Do you know what? I loved it. I actually loved the experience for you. My main sparring partner, who used to spar with a lot, was Steve Cunningham, who boxed Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
I used to spar with him, mostly sparring with him. I can remember this. I know I keep saying black. I don't know what I said these days. But there were these black blokes who come in one day, and they were like really, look like a bit gangsterish, like. And he's like, and I'm sparring with Cunningham, and they went, "Who's that guy? He looks like Dempsey." And I come over to him. I got talking to him, and he went, "You just fight like Dempsey," because I was going forward against Cunningham, going forward. And honestly, it was a time before mobile phones with cameras and that lot. And I've got no photos of it and nothing. And I'm a bit gutted about that, because I've got photos of kids in the little fire hydrants outside with water, because it was so hot in summer. I would have had some neat memories, some neat photos, but obviously it was a bit of time before camera phone.
That's a shame. But no, Steve Cunningham as well, top man as well. I want to ask you this one, Clinton. Who do you feel was your best opponent all round? Like, if you look at all your opponents you face, who do you feel was the best all round fighter? It's got to be Roy.
Yeah, Roy Jones at the time. Yeah, great fighter. Roy Jones at the time. It was sad about Roy Jones' decline. I do believe when he went to heavyweight, he would never say him when he come back down. No, never say him. Knocked out by Johnson, knocked out by Tarver. Carl Zaggy had him at the flipping right time. Unbelievable. We got him at the right time. It still went 12 rounds, which I was very surprised with. Carl Zaggy was a great fighter. I'm not slagging Carl Zaggy. Carl Zaggy was a great fighter. But he got Jones at the right time.
And I want to ask you as well, you mentioned a couple times during this interview about hard punchers. I think you named Crawford Ashley, you named Rico Hoy, but who was the number one biggest puncher you ever stepped in with?
Ole Clementson.
Oh, wow. I didn't think you'd say him.
Oh, my God. He could punch. You know a story about him, but the first time I met him, I was paid to go and spar with him in Denmark. So I went over on my own, and he was fighting for a world title. No, he was fighting Crawford Ashley, the European. And the spot, he just couldn't try and kill me. Oh, my God. He was punching me, but I was a mover at the time, and I was getting away like. So one day, I turned up and he said, one day we're going downstairs. We went downstairs into another room, and ring was like size of a matchbox, and he totally just went for it, smashing me. I took it all like, and I was all right with it. But I went back and sat in this room where I was staying, so I was here for like 2 weeks, and I sat there and I looked in the mirror, my face was all bruised. And I thought, oh man, this is hard work, this. I'm getting something like 60 quid, about 150 quid a day, I think, something like that. And I thought, God, this is hard work, this. But as the days went on, it was me doing the beating. And anyway, he boxed. Can you remember when he boxed Ashley? He knocked Crawford Ashley out cold.
Okay, yeah, I think so.
Knocked her out. And then I won the European, because Clementson gave it up. I won the European, then I fought Clementson. And obviously, he put me down with a big shot. But I was more embarrassed when I went down. For me, it was the first time I went down. And I went down, and I can't remember, he put me down. And I got up, and I was like, my manager's going, calm down. I'm a bit embarrassed because I was down. That were at Wembley, I think. Yeah, we were at Wembley. And I got up and I put him down, knocked him onto the ropes, and then next round I knocked him out. But that's where the skinny boy from Sheffield come from, because everybody knows it from the skinny boy from Sheffield. Because at the press conference, he came up to me and went, "There's no way I can lose to a skinny boy." And after the fight, I went up to cameras and went, "Not bad for a skinny boy," and that's where that comes from. Everybody calls him skinny boy because of that.
I love that.
But he could punch. Yeah, his record was something like
It was crazy. Yeah,
57 fights, about 50 knockouts.
Yeah. Wow.
But a
okay.
bully. He was
The power was real. Yeah.
Yeah, he could punch.
And Clinton, was there anyone that you wish that you would have had the chance to fight, but for whatever reason it didn't happen? You mentioned Joe Kawasaki. Was there any others?
No, yeah, Dalo Michalewski. Okay. There was a German champion at the time called Tavoris Cloud. We did go over to Germany to try and sign a contract, or went to see. Klitschko were fighting actually, so Dennis went over to talk to her. It never happened, and Gonzalez went over and beat him. That's who Ole Gonzalez beat for his world title. If you can remember at that time, Roy Jones were unbeaten and Michalewski were unbeaten. But they won't fight each other. They're both champions, but they won't fight each other because they won't travel. But then Gonzalez went from Mexico to Germany and beat Michalewski, who were a long reigning champion as well. Wow. So the Kawasaki fight, people always talk about the Kawasaki fight. I've always been an honest boxer. I think on the certain night, the fight would have been a great fight. But Kawasaki was something special. He was a champion for a long time, and that takes some doing. So it would have been a really good fight. But if I were a betting man, I'd put money on Kawasaki.
I want to ask you as well.
End of the day, he was a great fighter.
No, he was excellent. I want to ask you as well, your favourite win. I know you touched on, obviously, there's a few. I'm sure you've got the Glen Johnson 3, the night you won a world title, and you talked about one earlier that I've forgotten that was a really big one as well. But what was the best win of your career, your favourite win?
Favourite win? God, it's got to be the Crawford Ashley fight. I just think the video, the actual, if you watch it on YouTube, the footage before the fight, it's so against me. It's like, we got Clinton Woods tonight. It wasn't very good his last fight. It's only a matter of time before he gets hit on the chin, and he's like just dismiss me. Then through the rounds, they start changing the tune. For me, it's probably that one. I know winning the world title was a long time coming and a massive thing, but also the Central area. I know people think, the Central area. I never thought I'd win a title. Central area was a big night for me, a really big night, and that were in like a little small club in Sheffield. That was a great night. A lot of guys always talk about there's a club in Sheffield where they used to box all the time. Do you want to know about Pine Grove Club? It's been knocked down now, and everybody talks about the days at Pine Grove when I used to fight. One of the funny things about my career is when I retired, we still used to get people, women, my friends' wives, phoning my wife up saying, "Is Clinton fighting tonight?" Because lads still tell mistresses that I was fighting, and that was just their excuse to go out. So, no, but I had a good career. I had like I said, the Tarver fight was just the worst thing ever. It was horrible. But I'm happy with my career. Good laugh, good time. Some people ask me, would you change your? I'd have probably been a bit more businessman like it.
That was actually going to be my next question. I was going to say, have you got any regrets, and what would you go back and change if you do?
I'd have treated it more like a business, which I didn't. Never really asked anything about how much you getting, how much this, that. I'm lucky because we did well. We did well with boxing and did well financially. We did all right. My wife's, God almighty, if it weren't for my wife, I don't know what I'd have, if it had been carried on boxing. I don't know. My wife's brilliant. She's totally not money motivated at all. She's really successful at her business, what she does. No regrets really. I think one regret would have been is not getting on that plane to fight Tarver. Should have pulled that.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest regret. I'd have beat him. Not through skill, just through fitness.
Yeah.
That's the only regret I've got.
That's not a bad regret, I guess, to have. It's just the one. My final real question, I'm going to kind of throw two into one here. I was going to ask, and this is probably the most important question that I like to ask former fighters. I want to ask, are you a happy man? We're in 2022. You sound happy to me after retirement. You sound happy.
Yeah, I'm happy, yeah. Flipping heck, I'm 50 now. I'm a granddad. I've been a granddad 6 years. My oldest son's 35. You know what I mean? So that makes me feel old. Your adult sons, how old are we?
Hang on a minute. Wait, your oldest son's 35 and you're 50.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm a naughty boy.
Wow.
I'm a naughty boy. He does really well. He's got a good little business. Like I said, he's got two kids, so I'm a granddad now. I live in a lovely house. I'm actually stood outside now. All the way through this interview, I've been stood outside, and I'm surrounded by countryside. It's beautiful where I live.
Lovely.
I've got a gym. I didn't earn enough money to not do nothing, so I've got a gym and I do boxing fitness. I set up an amateur club now, what's just taking off. So yeah, I do all right. We go away. I've got a son at 17 who just turned 17. I've got a daughter who's 14. So it's just family life with me, really. Mum and Dad still alive. They're still at it. I see them more or less every day. Go down to the house every day, have a cup of coffee with them. Yeah, we're all right.
Beautiful, man. I love to hear that. That's such a warm, excellent end to this interview. It's brilliant that you're so close with your family. That's what's the most important thing. Just finally, before we wrap it up, Clinton, if you've got any closing words, if you want to say anything you like at all before we let you go to the listeners, take it away, my friend. The floor is yours.
Boxing, I believe I had a great career. Never expected to win anything. I went from a 22-year-old in trouble, more or less, locked up more or less every flipping weekend, to winning world title. Not many kids do that, and not many kids finish up after boxing with what I've got. So boxing is still, even though I'm not the massive follower of it, it's still the greatest sport in the world. So regrets, I've had a few, but there again, too few to mention.
Excellent. Listen, Clinton, it's been a real pleasure walking down memory lane with you. Thank you so much for your time. God bless you, and I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and this brings the BoxHard Podcast 2022 Christmas Special Edition to a close. I've been your host, Joey Coastman, and Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A humongous thank you to our special guest, and he really was a special guest, former IBF Light-Heavyweight World Champion Clinton Woods. I hope, as listeners, you all enjoyed that. We did just over an hour there, and it was really good to listen to. I mean, I think Clinton is one of the guys in boxing, in British boxing, that doesn't really get the mentions that I feel he deserves. Really good fighter, really good story. Hope you all enjoyed it. Just want to sign out just by saying, of course, please do not forget, it's your last chance to send us in your Fighter of the Year, Young Fighter of the Year 25 and under, Knockout of the Year, Upset of the Year, British Fighter of the Year, Female Fighter of the Year, Fight of the Year, Trainer of the Year if you want it, Prospect of the Year, I think I already said that, and your pound for pound list if you are brave enough. But that's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Have a fantastic Christmas, and we'll see you all again for one more show before 2022 wraps up.